Hey everyone, and welcome to the Crucible. This is our weekly discussion focusing on topics we find important as secular humanists. I'm your host, Skids the Clown, and joining me tonight is the Borg Skeptic, who is the host of the Borg Skeptic Show. Katie, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Skids.
Awesome. I absolutely recommend everybody go check out our channel when you get a chance after the show. Obviously, stay here and watch what we have tonight because we've got a great show coming up. But before I get started, I'd like to say hi to everybody joining us this evening. Thank you for your support. And if you like what you see on this channel, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more great content about the Promethean movement and secular humanism. And with all that said, let's bring on our guest for the night. He is the host of the Preaching Humanist YouTube show, a public speaker and activist for secular humanism. Let me introduce David Oliverio. Sorry if I butchered that name. I'm terrible at names.
It's Italian. Don't worry about it. It's Oliverio.
Like olive oil. I got it. It makes more sense. How are you doing tonight, David?
Doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
Wonderful. Now, tonight's topic, we're going to discuss normalizing humanism, which should be a subject that's pretty familiar to you, David. So before we get started, though, I usually like to have our guests kind of tell a little bit of a backstory and how they got here and you know, what is your passion? Go ahead and take it away.
Sure. My background started, in fundamentalist Pentecostal Christianity, being a child born back in the 1950s. That's a long time ago. Mm-hmm. We were part of a megachurch up in Detroit, Michigan through the 50s and 60s. And my father was in training to become a pastor. So they sent him out from the church in Detroit, Michigan. And yes, they were megachurches back in the 60s, even back then. Mm-hmm. And he took a little church in Waco, Texas, where there were more Christians than people. I like to kid around about that. And that was back in 1969. I was 11 or 12 years old. So I was your typical upbringing preacher's kid, right? Attempting to break away from that control, very controlling environment of Pentecostal Christianity. So I was involved in that all the way through my teenage years, went through the typical rebellious preacher kid years for a couple of years. And then I came back to Jesus, right? Back in 1976, when I was about 19 years old, heard the call of God to preach. Follow my father's footsteps, just like my brother. So I started preaching Jesus, right? That's all I knew. I was raised in the Christian bubble. We didn't believe in science. I didn't know who Charles Darwin was. Never heard of evolution. We were in that confirmation bias bubble, that insulation, right? Protected from the outside world. It was an anti-intellectual environment I was raised in. So we didn't believe in secondary education. It was just pure Bible, pure Holy Ghost, pure Jesus. That's all I knew. Mm-hmm. So I started preaching at age 19. Long story short, for the next 13 years, I worked on staff with my father as a staff evangelist. I learned how to go out and win souls, go door to door witnessing for Jesus, did all the stuff. Went independent, started 2 churches of my own in Waco, traveled around the country, small churches in Texas, especially, teaching other believers how to be evangelistic, right? The same person today at 63 years old, except I'm working for the other side of the fence, the non-believing side. So I still have that same passion to promote what I believe really benefits society. Many Christians are actually good people. I've been there, done that. I've been out of here for 31 years, but they just don't know there's an alternative. They think their belief system is what benefits and makes healthy societies. We know in the secular world, it really doesn't work that way. we know, right, that secular societies are healthier and happier. So basically, I do the same thing. I just go out and normalize atheism on the weekends. To all people I can, I hold up my signs. I do public speaking to humanist groups, trying to fire them up to action, to motivate them and inspire them to get out there and to put a face on that which is being demonized. So, Skid, if I could, real quick, I want your viewers to see what I do on Saturday mornings. This is my favorite sign. I like this. Sometimes people don't like it. Believe it or not, that angers evangelical Christians because they don't want to share being good right, without God. But all it means is we too can be good. This one's my new favorite because we always hear about this love thing that Christianity owns and it comes from God. We know it's just human. And that angers people too. But for the most part, people like to see that. And then to keep church and state separate, very important. And of course, the promoting science and reason. So that was a condensed, quick version of what I do.
That's just amazing. I love that story so much. And what I really like is, like you said, you're not really doing anything different. Because, it sounds like when you were a believer, you were generally going out there and spreading the good news, as you would consider it, trying to get people aware of, this is kind of the way to live a happy, healthy life. Now you've just kind of taken that same message and removed, a little bit of the filler from it. You're still talking about, this is the main thing we're trying to do is help society and, just make the world a better place and have people get along and everything like that. But what kind of jumps out at me is you mentioned that when you have your signs, and I totally agree, we Christians, we're not going to put any blanket statements down. There are many great people who are Christians, but you said that a lot of them don't like to see the signs where, you can be good without God. Have you had any people, really get upset while you're there?
Oh, yeah. It happens sometimes, and they're usually from the extreme Christian right, obviously, the evangelicals and fundamentalists. Hell, they get mad even at progressive liberal Christians because to them, they're not the real Christians, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, they get angry. I've had some come by through the years, and I call them drive-bys. Drive-bys, right? Instead of drive-by shooting, they walk by and they'll say things like, "You're going to hell," or "Where you're going is not going to be a good place. It's very hot there," or "You cannot be good without God. It is impossible," and other things. I've had some F-bombs, cursing. I've had people flip me off. Christians, apparently, they say they're Christians. So it really causes a lot of intimidation with some believers. And it brings them into that reactionary mode. They don't know how to deal with it. And it's very threatening to believers, especially those on the right, to actually see a smiling face out there that can love and can display the kindness of humanity, showing them that all the stuff they do that they think is exclusively Christian, empathy, compassion, and it's just human. We know that, right? Throughout all humanity. And that really angers them. In fact, the secular humanist good without God sign angers them more than an atheist t-shirt does. Because when they just see atheists, they get angry a little bit, but when they see you making a claim and saying you are just as good as they are, you are just as happy, you have meaning and fulfillment in your life through secular humanism, we know how to do this, just like they have, but I say in the realm of reality, right? We find meaning and purpose in reality. We don't need the supernatural stuff for that. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing that I do, and not a lot of people do this because I'm attempting to even find common ground. Some atheists don't like that. They would say I'm being a soft atheist. I'm actually not. I'm a very strong atheist, but my
Mm-hmm.
secular humanism is so far above and beyond just my simple atheism. Because secular humanism is what helps us to see how to have a good life, right? Living
Absolutely.
well in a God-free world, and that's what secular humanism is all about.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to focus on the negative. So, I want to hear about some, good conversations that you've had because, looking at your Facebook, I noticed that you used the word amiable diplomatic humanism quite often in your posts. Can you tell us a little bit, like some positive stories where you've had some really good discourse with somebody who may have initially been triggered by one of your signs?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, it happens so often. I've got all these preacher stories, right? um,
Hmm.
well, there was a young man not long ago. Of course, this is still during COVID, so it's not quite as effective. But masks and staying 6 feet away. But he didn't like the sign "Secular Humanism, Good Without God." So he started in on this typical thing where how do you know what right and wrong is without God? How do you know
Hmm.
objective reality or truth? How do you know this? How do you know that? How can you know what is harmful to other people? The simple things that we know through just science, just looking at the natural world and other social animals. We all have it in us to treat each other good and not cause harm, right?
Right.
And but what I normally do with someone like that, rather than firing back like I used to do, um, now I just kind of tell them, look, I'm not here to debate and argue with you where our morals come from so much. I'm here to normalize this and to show you that we actually have a lot in common. And it kind of blows them away. They're not ready for that. They're ready for a fight because they expect
Yeah.
we who are humanists, agnostics, atheists to be these very angry, nihilistic, bitter, depressed
Yep.
people. And then they see us just go, hey, look, guess what? We have a lot in common. We have a lot of differences, no doubt, but we would agree on probably 85 to
Hmm.
90% of morals and ethics. Don't steal, don't kill, don't cheat, don't lie. We've known that for eons before the Bible was written, right? It's just being part of a social animal species.
Yes.
Um, so basically, when you talk to people like that, that has a tendency to defuse these angry type Christians, and they
Hmm.
don't know how to deal with it. They are blown away when you tell them we actually have more in common than you know. Now, sure, we have our differences, and I am okay with you to believe whatever you want as long, because there's contingency here,
Right.
contingent upon the fact as long as you don't discriminate against other people, treat them less than human,
Absolutely.
LGBT, women, all the other things, right? And as long as you keep your hands off of the government and the separation of church and state,
Yeah.
I don't care what you believe, just don't harm anybody else. Now, we know that doesn't always happen though,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
evangelicals, that's what we have to stand up against, right?
Hmm.
But when I tell them that we have more things in common than they know, it completely defuses them. And when you present yourself as a diplomatic, friendly, amiable, ethical, moral, kind person, diplomatic, which means you don't have to agree with everything. Diplomacy is an art. It's just getting along with people like a Democrat or Republican does in the government.
Hmm.
You don't have to agree on everything, but you respect the human. And that's what we as humanists do, right? We
Exactly.
value and respect all people, even if they believe in a God or if they're extreme right conservatives. And it's sometimes hard to get along with them, but we attempt to do that. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, because you don't have to agree, with the government the way it was, especially here in the States in the last 4 years. That seemed to be one of these big things that it seemed where they were trying to drive a lot of secularism out of government. And they wanted to have more of a nationalistic, like a Christian nationalist point of view established. And of course, the initial reaction to somebody is just, yell and scream and just put up a fight. But I just absolutely adore the fact that it's like, if we sat down with a lot of these people in the same room, 85%, like you said, we could agree this is what we want our government to do. This is what we want the people to do for themselves and everything like that. Yes, there are these big key issues that we don't agree on. Let's not focus on these issues, and let's focus on what we do agree on. And that is our starting point. Then we can get to those bigger issues. And, once we work together on this, then maybe we can start working together on this. We're not going to make everybody happy, but we can find that middle point where we actually, everybody's happy and everybody's beneficial. And that might be a little idealistic for some people, but I mean, that's the goal, is at least give it an effort to try.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah. The problem I'm getting now, and the pushback I get from some people on our side of the fence, right? I get it from our side of the fence. I've been called a fascist for just being out there with signs from fellow atheists. And some people would say I need to try to constantly change their mind and attack their belief system. We all know the horrible stuff in the Bible. We all know it. We hear it all the time. And again, we have to change that image that all atheists, all humanists and agnostics are these hateful people. I'll tell you why. Because people are dropping off of the Christian tree every decade, every year. We don't even have to argue with them that much. We have the internet. We have science, reason, philosophy. We have education. More and more people are falling off of that Christian tree. And they're out there, right? They don't need somebody to tell them how horrible that belief system is.
Yeah.
So what I do, I focus on the positives. I say, look, folks, there are some things in the Bible and even the Quran that are good things. And even your church, I missed the good part of church, which is the community and all the things you do. And even in the Bible, when you tell them that, like the Good Samaritan, feeding homeless people, when I was naked, I clothed you. When I was hungry, you fed me. Insomuch as you've done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it to me. The words of Jesus, right? Okay? Whether it existed or not, I don't really care.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
The fact of the matter is that's pure humanism. It came way before the Bible. So, of course, the Good Samaritan policy, the Golden Rule, that's just all humanism. So when you approach these people in this methodology, in this way, they can see, especially those that are already on the fence. They already have their doubts, and they see that there's an alternative. They can peek over the fence on our side of the fence and see that we have lush green grass over here too. But they don't know that because all they see these angry type people. And I want to portray something different. There's a lot of us that have taken the next step. We're still atheists or agnostics, but we've taken the next level into secular humanism. And when they see that, they think, oh my gosh, this is very similar to Christianity in a lot of ways. Without the God stuff, without the authoritarianism, without the dogma, right? And the discrimination. But there are other things that we have in common. So it makes it easier for them to jump over the fence because half of them are right on the fence.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's nice to already know that we kind of have a community. So it's one of the hardest things when you leave the church is that, sometimes you're kind of in a new world all by yourself. But if we create, like you were saying, this sounds a lot like, the same messages that they would receive while in a Christian community. Because, and it really is. We're trying to bring good to the world. That's the whole point. So if they can see, it's like, the same values, the same core beliefs that I had as a Christian. Is like, I want to be a good person and I want to help others. But they see it's like, okay, these people are doing the same thing. Then it gives them a little easier of that jump over. So it's not so much of a blind leap. It's like, okay, I can feel comfortable in this group of people here because we're still doing the same things. We're still going to the homeless shelters and doing all the charity work and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. And we have to get out of our atheist bubble because Christians, I used to be in a bubble. I have clients. I'm a personal trainer until my wife lets me retire in a couple of years. I can't wait. Anyway, so I go into people's homes and train people, right? Individually, usually older folks like me. Now with COVID, I'm doing it via Zoom.
Okay.
But normally, through the years, I go into clients' homes. Now, here's my point. Many of them are Christians. I've had Muslim clients, Christians, evangelical Christians, progressive Christians, atheists, Muslims, New Age spiritualists, all kinds of people. I go into their environment, into their home, get to know their husband, their wife, their kids, their grandkids, their boyfriend, girlfriends, or whatever, their dogs and cats, everybody. I get to know them. They get to see an atheist in their home for Christians. Now, at first, they've never met a person like us. I've been there twice a week for years. These people have learned to accept me as one of their own almost. They have learned through the years that we aren't that different, right? So we have to get out of our bubble and show these people that we have a lot in common. And that's what I try to do. It doesn't mean you have to compromise, though. It doesn't mean you soften up on your stance. It just means you respect the human, not the belief all the time.
Absolutely. Katie, do you have any questions?
I'm just loving the conversation. I mean, I think I speak for all of the viewers as well that we have with us at the moment. What you're saying is absolutely amazing. I mean, what you're doing is great, and sometimes you look around the atheist community and you wish that a lot more people were like you, where do have these values of actually wanting to find the middle ground between theism and atheism, because on a whole, the majority of theists, as you mentioned before, they are lovely people. They are just exactly like us. They're nice people, and sometimes some of the hatred, I mean, I think about, some of the hatred that you get from theists. I think a lot of that is more defensive than it is actually them, being horrible. It's, just a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah.
Questioning the beliefs. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I used to be one of those kind of guys. I talk about this a lot. I've done these talks on what I call adolescent atheism, right? When you're in that stage and not everybody goes through that. Those of us that came from, Katie, I think you and I discussed this, but those of us that come from hardcore Christianity, we tend to be, at least I did, tend to go through that phase of you're angry and you want to lash out and you want to vilify and demonize these people because religion hurt me in my younger years.
Yeah.
Stole the prime of my life, all that. So it took me many years before I was ready to do what I do. It took me years to get healed up from my adolescent stage of atheism. And it was humanism, maturing above and beyond, loving humanity, the love of humanity. And that's what really helps. So that's another reason I do what I do, is to try to lead by example and show a lot of the other hurt atheists, because I meet them out there. I mean, I meet them all the time, and they don't want anything to do with church or religion. They say, David, you sound too much like a preacher. I don't like it. Or it reminds me of church. I don't want to join a community, a humanist community. It's too churchy. Well, some people miss the good part of church. And that's what I say.
Right.
Those of us that miss that good part of church, we do it. Some people don't want it. That's fine. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But that's my concern is there are several atheists that have not come to that point yet. They haven't taken that step. And I always recommend them to contact Dr. Daryl Ray, right?
Yeah.
Recovery from Religion.
Yes,
All these great
Brilliant
absolutely.
organizations. Get healed
organisation.
up. What's
Mhm.
that?
Oh, brilliant organisation. Extremely helpful for a lot of people, and yeah.
But that's the thing. When you get healed up, you become a happier person. You'll love yourself again. Once you love yourself, then you go out and love other people. And right
Yeah.
away, some people go, that sounds Christian. It's human. It's
Mhm.
time that we, as non believers, reclaim this stuff because this love and compassion has been around way longer than religion, way longer
Yes.
than Christianity. They came around, they were smart, great marketers. They hijacked all this good and claim it as their own, you know. No one can be good, only God is good, like Jesus said, you know. It's time we reclaim this stuff and just say
Yeah.
Yeah.
to love is human. No need for anything supernatural. It's already in us.
Exactly.
So I think that should be our message. It's very simple, but I think it's so simple in the
Mhm.
atheist community. Some people just miss it because they're so used to going deep all the time. The deep science, deep philosophy, which is very important. We need that. But we got to add this other side to it too.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Religion, in my opinion, religion has for millennia now has stolen human values away from humanity, and giving it over to this supernatural
Right.
entity, and we need to take it back, and
Yeah.
because it's something which we all have the ability to be good. We all have that
Yeah.
ability to be nice and to care and be compassionate, and that's the only way we're going to make the world any better in the future.
Mhm. And it's not even necessarily just taking it back. It's just, understanding that everybody is part of it. It's not just, they can't just take a claim on it and say, this is exclusively ours. Because it's one of the things that, it's an argument I hear. I don't want to harp on this subject, but it's like when I tell them, because I do a lot of charity work, and, I donate time to soup kitchens, and I visit sick kids in the hospital and stuff like that. I do a lot of this stuff already. And of course, the comment I hear the most is like, well, you just don't realize it, but God's got his imprint on your heart, and that's why you're doing it. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, no, that's not why I'm doing it. But that's beside the point. I
Yeah.
think we have a really good understanding of what, it means to be good. I guess the big question is, how do people in our community take that step? Because what you're doing, I don't know if I myself would even be comfortable with that. You're just throwing yourself out there, putting yourself in kind of like you've described the spotlight,
The lion's
and
den.
just taking some of that negative energy from people. How do you recommend other people start doing that?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you brought that up, Skid, because in my talks, I want to make sure and tell people I talk to, it's not for everybody. Very few people can do what I do. It's simply because I used to be an evangelist. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
afraid. I was raised that way. My daddy taught me how to work a crowd, go out there and just be a preacher. My brother and I learned all that, nurture and nature. It's not for everybody. So I hope your viewers don't think that we all have to do that. When I talk to groups, these humanist groups, I always just ask, all you need is maybe one or two committed people that love this kind of thing to do it. All the others
Mm-hmm.
can find their spoke in the secular wheel. We all have a spoke. We all are very needed to be productive, find our niche, right? What we're good at, what our abilities are, because we all need to be balancing that wheel out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my argument for secular humanist communities, because collectively we can do more. We can normalize atheism more rather than little isolated people out there doing their thing like me and other people. That's good. But once you have a strong, almost church like community for a bunch of non believers, a humanist community, um, structured much like a mega church, because that stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, I used to do that stuff. I started churches. They had potlucks, and people used to come for relationships and meaning and happiness and music. If we have that same environment, collectively, from there, you can have all these different departments, all kinds of activism, all kinds of philanthropy and humanitarianism, soup kitchens, like you said, feeding homeless people, political activism, LGBT rights, racial inequality, the whole thing out from that community, just like the church, because that system works.
Absolutely.
Minus the bad stuff, right?
Right.
So I think that would work better if we could do that. But we need proper leadership. And that's another fear a lot of atheists have, understandably so.
Yeah.
We're afraid of that charismatic, controlling type leadership. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be pluralistic democracy. But we still need leadership, people with passion.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, because there's always going to be the very vocal person like you that's going to kind of hold the flag up and go out there and rally the troops, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the leader of the organization. That's it as a secularist, we're more prone to want to have more of this is a elected organization. So, this year, this is our board of directors, or whatever you want to call it. And then, after a year or so, you serve your time, and then you move somebody else up and give everybody a chance to get their voice heard, instead of just kind of having the preacher that's constantly, communicating the message to the pulpit to carry out to everybody.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, to me, all other social animals have some kind of leadership, whether it's Asian or African elephant. They have the matriarchal, the female leader, right? Our fellow primates, except for the orangutans, they're the only non-social. But the other social apes and monkeys have a alpha male. We don't want the alpha male. We had enough of that in evangelical Christianity. But most social animals have some type of leadership. If we can balance it out, I know it's a fine line, because to me, the groups without this passionate leadership really don't do much. They kind of fizzle out because no one has the vision and the passion. If you can balance that vision and passion out with a few people that know where they're headed and they have experience, and other people fitting into that, sharing responsibilities in pluralism, and I know it's a fine line, I think we would have something. So that's why churches tend to work, especially those that are not so authoritarian. A lot of the more mega churches that are less evangelical, they have a lot of different plurality of leadership. Because I talk to these people. I've gone in and talked to pastors. I ask them, and I tell them what I do. And they're kind of blown away. Some of them want to start debating. Yeah. And others are just, they would say, I never knew y'all did this. What do y'all talk about in your groups? What do y'all do? Same thing y'all do, except we don't talk about God. We give good secular, motivational, inspirational talks about being good. And we have potlucks. We have music, just without the God stuff. It blows them away. It really does.
Do you ever invite some of these theist contacts to come join you in like one of your events, just so they could see it?
I haven't gone that far. I have a few major inabilities and weaknesses. One of mine is because of my past being so indoctrinated in Christianity, right? And after I got healed up into my humanism, I still have a tendency when someone wants to argue and be reactionary with me and try to debate me, and I still have this tendency. This is my weakness. We're all growing and learning, right? I still have this tendency to kind of react and get a little bit defensive.
Yes.
And I'm not real good at that. I leave that for the great philosophical debaters in our community, which we know so well. right here in Austin. I can name them. You know who they are. These people can sit there and listen to all these Christian arguments and use the Socratic method, all the great debate skills, which I'm not that great at, but that's their thing. My thing is different. So personally, I'm just trying to fill a need where not many people are out doing what I do. I'm trying to get more people involved with this to bring a balance to what we do. Because these great debaters, that's still necessary. But when I try to go into that field, I'm not real good at it. I still kind of get a little, when I hear the same old stuff all the time. Well, God is real. He's in my heart. You can't disprove it. It's the same stuff over and over again. So I don't have a lot of patience for that.
Yeah.
But I would just prefer to be myself, do what I do well, focus on my strengths.
Yeah. So, like, for other, secular humanist communities which are just starting out, for instance, like this community that we're starting here, what would be, say, 3 pieces of advice that you would that you would give for, succeeding and helping to make a better world?
Oh, okay. Katie, I think I heard you right. Did you ask me 3 things that would help a secular humanist community?
Yes, that's just starting out to succeed and actually make actually have a chance of making a difference.
Impact.
Good question. I used to preach it from this book in the Bible called Proverbs, and I can say this. Some people may not like it because it's actually a good little verse. It's pure humanism. Doesn't say anything about gods. But without a vision, without passion, people perish, wither away, right? A lot of these groups I've known, great people, but they're nothing more than a little secular social club, which is good. We need that community. We need a community of like-minded people, right? But if you don't have more than just that, you're not going to succeed. You have to have a goal, an objective. What is your goal? What is your objective? Do you want to grow? Because if you don't go, you ain't going to grow. The old evangelist in me. You got to get out there. You got to talk about what you do believe in, not what you don't believe in, right? We're atheists. We don't believe in Christianity. We talk about the positive, what we believe in, the values and the affirmations of secular humanism. You can learn that from Paul Kurtz and Cordes Lamont, many other humanist philosophers, and personal experience, right?
Yeah.
So number 1, you have to have a vision and passion. Number 2, you have to be visible. You have to get out there with a message. You have to promote it. I have talks on this, promoting secular humanism. Some people don't like it. Some atheists are like, no, that's too Christian. We don't want to promote. I say, why not? We have something that is so valuable that is a beautiful replacement for theistic religion for all those that have already left that are just wandering around out there. They're like the scattered Jews, right? Remember I don't know if that word, Diaspora, how am I pronouncing that correctly? But the scattered people, there are scattered atheists out there, and many of them miss what they used to have in church, but they're atheists. So we have to go out and promote it, but it's non-coercive. This is not like I used to do, like, he that believeth not shall be cursed and damned. We're not, it's non-coercive. It's organic. You just let people know about it, and it's available. And there's no hell for you if you don't like it. That's the beautiful thing about it, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, you can literally just walk away if you don't want to do it.
Absolutely. So passion, vision, you got to have a message. You got to quit talking about what we've been doing for 2,000 years, arguing only over the existence of a God. We can't disprove it. They can't prove it. Because it's just an idea in their head. Right. How do you disprove an idea in someone's head? They're going to say, I just know by faith. How can you argue with that? So to me, I would rather turn this way and be progressive, which means advancing and moving ahead. That's what progressivism means. And that would be to show the world what is this thing called secular humanism.
Yeah.
You got to have that. And I would say also get over the fear being too much like Christians or too much like church.
Right.
Because I love to keep that beautiful, sweet little baby and throw the dirty bathwater out, right? We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
We
Definitely.
keep what works.
Yeah. And I understand why a lot of atheists are scared about that, because it is a common argument where they say, well, atheism is just another religion. And, that is something that makes, a lot of atheists' head just twitch when they hear that. So when you actually offer a community, it's like, hey, it's a community like a church, already that vein starts popping, because it's kind of just, they're already geared towards rejecting the idea.
Okay, can I tell you one more story?
Absolutely, go for it.
I've got hundreds of these stories. I set up a booth for the atheist community of Austin for 3 years up in a rural city called Georgetown, a suburban area. All big cities have suburban, smaller towns, right? So it's more conservative and more Christian. They have a big, what they call market days, a trade show. People set up little tents and booths, right? They sell their products. And there's a few Christian groups out there promoting Christianity. I found out about it 3 years ago. I called the director there, introduced myself, being amiable and diplomatic, told her who I was. I'm a member of the atheist community of Austin. Could I set up a table there? She goes, yes. Good. So I set up a booth, atheist community of Austin, secular humanism, good without God, under the tent with all these other vendors out there. Now, let me tell you what happened. Once a month for 3 years, I met so many people out there. I made friends with believers. At first, they weren't happy with me. The guy next to me in a tent, he saw my shirt. He says, I have nothing to say to you. Bye. I said, sir, what would Jesus do? I said, let me ask you, do you think we can get along even if we have differences? We became friends, even though we have major differences. Now, he learned a lot. He learned that a lot of us who are non-believers are just like them. Good, moral people. But here's the important thing. When I was out there those 3 years, I wasn't out there to debate and argue with Christians all the time. Normalizing atheism, number one. But number two, all the secular non-believers in that rural conservative town who were blown away when they saw the sign. They would literally run up to the tent, hug me and some of the helpers that I brought with me, some of these young guys, and ask for information. I passed out the cards for all the national humanist groups and atheist groups, all the local Austin groups and their website, the cards on all the definitions of humanism. So I do all this stuff. But they would come up to the tent, and you know what they told me? They said, I thought I was the only one in this small conservative town here that didn't believe in God anymore. Where do I go?
Yeah.
Who do I call? Where can I meet people like me? And that literally put tears in my eyes. I had to walk off sometimes because I'm Italian. I'm emotional, And just seeing these young people and even older people. But I also had angry atheists. A couple about my age in their 60s approached the tent. He was healed up. She was still in her adolescent stage, still hurt and wounded. Because when they left, I like to crack little jokes sometimes. I say, God bless y'all. I'm praying for you. He laughed because he knew we were just having fun, right?
Yeah.
When I said that, she didn't like it.
Yeah.
She went, oh, that reminds me of church. I don't want to hear anything about church or God. It makes me sick. He looked at his wife and he patted her on the arm and said, honey, he's just kidding. Lighten up. I didn't have any Dr. Daryl Ray's cards for her. I wish I would have. I would have handed her one. Call this number, get some help. But anyway, my point is, that's what makes me happy out there, is to normalize it to believers, and mainly just to inform non-believers that there are communities of humanism, and a lot of atheists have never heard of humanism. I've had atheists come up to me and go, what's this thing called humanism? Literally.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So it's really unbelievable. You got to get out there, though. So it's a lot different than just sit behind a computer.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
This face-to-face is much more effective.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's the unfortunate thing about the pandemic is that, a lot of people would probably be out there and promoting this and singing praises and gripping and grinning with people. And right now it's just, we're still not to that point. Hopefully that's coming soon where more of us can get out there and do that. I will definitely be trying to do that. A little bit
Yeah.
switching of gears.
Well,
We talk a lot about.
before we switch the gears, I would like
Oh,
to
sure.
ask a question. Once this pandemic's over, have you got anything? Have you got anything big planned for the secular humanist?
Yeah, I actually do. Really big. I'm thinking here, shall I let the cat out of the bag? I think I will because I've already contacted two of the presidents of some of the other secular groups in town. They all know me. I've spoke for all the different groups. We have four or five different groups. I support them all. I promote them all on my card, and the national groups. American Humanists, American Atheists, all the great ones,
Yep.
and their websites. So I'm still a member of the atheist community of Austin. They still own my little Preaching Humanist YouTube show. So I'm a man of solidarity. Each of these groups and nationwide, you over in England, I'm sure, and around the States, all around, each different group has a little variation and difference. We're all kind of a different flavor, which is all good. Diversity is great. But actually, I've come to a point in my life, going on 64 soon, I used to start and plant these little churches in the 70s and 80s with others, right? So I'm at a point now where I am ready, once COVID is gone, and we're all vaccinated, we can get back in.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and start a secular humanist community the way I did years ago, 30 or 40 years ago. Very similar to a mega church. The same system, but for atheist agnostics, right? For non-believers. So I have a group of people nationwide. There's a network, 13 chapters. I guess it's like a denomination almost, but for secular, for humanist, right? And I'm going to probably start a new chapter here in Austin. But I have to find a board. I have to find like-minded people that want to get involved and share my vision and passion.
Yeah.
Because my experiential intelligence, notice I didn't say my high IQ. I'm just an average guy without a college degree. But my experiential intelligence tells me there are people all out there longing for something like this, that they're tired of fighting, the hating. They just want to be nice and love humanity and grow into their humanism. So I want to start a community like that. And this network is a great organization. And that's my next step. I'm going to keep doing what I do for all the groups. And I told the other people in the other groups what I want to do. They were like, we're all on board with you, David. We can all work together. Some of them are more about debate and changing minds. That's fine. The great street epistemology movement. I know Anthony Magnabosco from San Antonio, street epistemology. He's great at what he does. I'm going to do what I know through experience, right? My strength. And I think if this is done, hopefully it'll be an example for other groups to be a little more proactive, a little more aggressive, pattern after what works. Because back in those days, folks, I packed them out. I've had up to 80 to 100 people come to a little tiny building, not to hear my old 20 or 30-year-old yapping Pentecostal mouth. They came for the music, the happiness. They came to be with their brothers and sisters in Christ, right? It's the same thing. We just come for community. They came for the potluck, the relationships, all the good stuff. So if we have that type of system for humanism, I'm hopeful it'll work. And if it doesn't, I'll stand corrected. At least I can try. It may not work, but I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's an absolutely amazing idea, and I think it's quite powerful as well because for those who are tinkering on the edge of their religious belief and trying to look for something, they're probably trying to look for something similar to what they're used to, and that's such a
Absolutely.
powerful group for that in that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
we're going to have to be motivated by reason, grounded and rooted in science. We can't forget
yes.
that. That's
Oh
the other
yes.
half.
Yeah.
We got to stick to that. I mean, I plan on having Zoom talks throughout the week, Science 101, Philosophy 101, but Sunday mornings are going to be a celebration and festival of life. That's what we
Oh,
used to do in
lovely.
Christianity. And we will just have lots of music and potluck and a light secular message of just going out there. But the science and philosophy, we can do the deep stuff too, but that's throughout the week in Zoom. I want a good balanced community. So that's what I think we're lacking in the atheist movement. I think it's time for us to move and take another step and add this to just science and philosophy only, and show the world that we too can have a full experience of humanity and emotionalism. Some people call it a little artsy fartsy, but hey, we're human. We need emotion and logic and reason both.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's funny because actually you guys hit exactly what I was going to switch gears to. So it actually flowed a lot better than my crude segue. But I was going to ask, we're kind of on that normalizing phase right now. Where do we take it after here? And, you bring up a lot of good points about, it's about education and promoting, not just secular humanism, but science and reason and, putting a focus on doing stuff with the government so that we can improve the situation for other people, to try to do things that eliminate poverty and hunger within our nation and not be so divided between, different political points of view and stuff like that. Is that where you kind of see this going as once we normalize it, then it is going out and actually trying to do good as a whole, getting communities together?
Yeah, I think we're headed that direction. That's where I'm kind of headed. That's why we have to be open. See, as y'all know, secular humanism is different than religion, where that's already set. It's set in stone. It's immutable, unchangeable. They're certain. We keep changing. We keep evolving because of science and new facts and data. We keep changing. What may have worked before may not work now. We keep changing. So we're open-minded, right? Always skeptical.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I see it definitely moving that way, but promoting it and normalizing it first. But we also have to always remember to promote the science and the reason and things like education.
Yes.
Secular public schools. We have to promote all these different things. So you get people educated properly without any of the supernaturalism in there, just pure science and reason and education, arts, literature, poetry, history, philosophy, science, a well-rounded, grounded, rooted educational system. You're going to get more rational people. You're going to get more people that are secular. So that's what we have to do, especially here in the States.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the war on education, the war on intellectualism. We got a lot of work to do, but I think we're on the right path. But just think of baby steps.
Yeah.
I'm an old school guy. Little tiny incremental changes versus the French Revolution off with the head, immediately big giant tipping point. I think they're little tiny tipping points here and there, slight changes for the good. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah. I would start with, just being able to have somebody who is openly a secular humanist run for a major political office here in the United States. Even that seems at this moment like that's a big step that we've got a lot of work ahead of us before we can even have somebody who would run for a major office that could be openly secular.
Yes, and that's the importance again of what I guess you wanted us to talk about. Number one, the premise tonight was normalizing it. Once they see that, hey, so-and-so is running for mayor or state senator, representative, and they're secular, they don't believe in God, but yet once it's more normalized, they'll go, hey, I remember that guy Skids. I remember Katie. I remember these people I've met that are non-believers, but they're good people. They're moral. They're ethical. I would vote for that person, even if they don't believe in God. So that's another reason we have to normalize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get to a point where it's not even an issue on what God they believe in, or more specifically that they don't believe in a God, and focus on their character and their morality as a politician.
Absolutely.
Anything else from you, Katie?
Um, as I said earlier, I'm just loving this conversation. I mean, I think you've really shown us, that for anyone who is wondering, can atheism, live up to the same standards as, as religion. I think you've shown that secular maybe atheism can't because it's just an answer to one question, but secular humanism is definitely powerful enough to, stand up on equal footing to the values of religion, and in some cases even surpass those values as well. So
Definitely. Yeah, and that's the thing. You just said, Katie, you're right. We can't really promote atheism. We know, I mean, I'm a strong atheist, but it's just without belief or faith in a God. That's all it is.
Exactly.
But we do have something we can talk about, and very few people, and I'm not angry about it, I'm just a little concerned. I hope to get people fired up about this before I get too old here. But, we do have something above and beyond just our atheism. So this is something we can actually tell people. And I talk to my Christian clients. I even told my sister, who's an evangelical Baptist, who thinks, obviously, I'm going to hell. But, that's just her belief.
Yeah.
But I even told her about what I do now, finding common ground with all people, even if we have differences, what a humanist really is. And she was just like, whoa, I didn't know that. I mean, they hear about humanism that's demonic, it's of the devil, it's self-centered, it's all about meism, all these silly little notions and lies they've said about it. They're lies. So we have to tell the people the fact that humanism is very altruistic, very selfless. It's not just about me. And they take that from Epicureanism, right? The hedonism. They misinterpret that and embellish and twist it. It's not all about just personal pleasure. It's about bringing pleasure and love to everybody.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're coming up to the hour now. We're at 58 minutes. Usually what we do, David, is we go into a small after party, allow a couple of people from the chat to come in, ask, questions, continue the discussion a little bit. I know you are a little bit strapped for time, so it's up to you whether you want to stay around a little bit longer.
Sure, I can stay a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah, so for everyone in the chat, I will put a link in for the after party. Obviously, we'll go to intermission and get a few more people in. So just wait around for that.
Get your questions ready for David, and if you want to ask any questions, or just thank him for such a great talk, which he definitely deserves. Jump on in. We'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, if you're using a mobile phone to jump into the after party, please disable your video. You can join with video, and then just disable it, or you can click the video drop down menu and it'll have disable video. That just helps with the connection. Other than that, thank you very much, David, for the conversation. That was absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And you're so passionate about what you do, and that's just lovely to see.
That's what we need. We're lacking passion in our movement. There's nothing wrong with that. Right away, people think we're being Christian. No, we're being human. It's time to reclaim that.
Yeah. I totally agree about getting that passion back involved.
Definitely.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah. I'm just going to grab up the music for the intermission because I forgot to do that.
Guys, can I come back in 1 minute?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Sounds great.
Yeah. And
everybody.
So as I say, I will.
Shoes on.
Yeah, I'll leave the link at the. I'll pin it to the top of the chat for anyone that's interested.
Oh, I hear music.
Your skin now won't pull you down to the mire, but my river's gonna cleanse your sin now, safe from the righteous fire. Come, brothers and sisters, we'll give you everything you need. Come, brothers and sisters, we're scattering the Savior's seed. Free faith or by the force of my hand, you're bringing me a soul to save. Plans to filter from my great divine land, hellfire upon their grave. Come, brothers and sisters, we'll give you everything you need. Come, brothers and sisters, we're scattering the Savior's seed. Whoa. Step off the guilty path and come into this world of mine. The earth is collapsing down. Step off the guilty path and come into this world of mine. The earth is collapsing down. rusted turnstiles, we persevere. The wheels of conflict still move and turn. The day the world died, nothing was learned. And the future's a tunnel stretching endlessly into nothing, stumble in the black. And the light at the end is but a treachery. It will blind you and force you back. The day the world died, we kindle doom. We burned the outside, took to the gloom. But history's lessons are snubbed and spurned. The day the world died, nothing was learned. And the future's a tunnel stretching endlessly into nothing, stumble in the black. And the light at the end is but a treachery. It will blind you and force you back. Once more we divide, from peace we turn. The day the world died, nothing was learned.
Hello and welcome to the after party for the Preaching Humanist. We've been having a conversation with David. So anyone who wants to join in, the link is at the top of the chat. But for now, we're just going to continue the conversation. Our host Skids has some further questions that he would like to discuss.
Yeah, just a couple quick follow-up questions, and definitely trying to promote the secular humanist movement. First question I got to ask is, if I come up with some signs, are you going to be mad? Because I love your stick, just absolutely love it. I don't want to step on any copyrights though. If you're claiming this tent pole, then I'll think of something else. But if anybody else does want to do what you do, would you mind it?
Of course not. As we say in Italian, hey, forget about it. Forget about it. Of course not. I want everybody to use whatever. Yeah. Use these ideas, steal them, take them, do your own. I just want to motivate people just to be yourself. But you can take these ideas, you can take the same signs, all these secular humanism, good without a God. Oh, yeah, they're all good. The more the better.
And then the other question I had for you, kind of going back into normalizing it. So I see that you always talk about it too. You wear the shirts and you have the signs and everything like that. What was it like for you when you first openly came out as an atheist? Because, I always say, for me, I'm not quite open to everybody, you know, and in our community here, I'm brave enough to come up on YouTube and talk about my beliefs. But, you know, a lot of people that I know personally don't get on YouTube. So I'm comfortable with that. But I don't know if I would be quite to that point of wearing a t-shirt yet. Do you think that I should just overcome that fear and do that more, be more comfortable with that?
I think you'd have to answer that yourself, but I guess my recommendation for you, Skid, would be if you're not ready, then don't do it. If you're ready, if you're at a point where, you know what, I'm going to give this a try, you can experiment with it, maybe a place with not too many people. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember, are you in the Midwest here in the States?
I'm in Nebraska, which is very conservative in my area.
Okay, I got you. I would just do it when you're ready. It's hard for me to tell you what to do here, but I would do it only when you feel it's right. And there's no right or wrong here. Most people would never do it. But I think some of us should, for the very fact that they won't know you're an atheist. In fact, when they see you smiling or just being a nice person in public, you know what they're going to assume you are?
Yeah, a Christian or a theist. Yeah.
I've done case studies. I used to go into businesses and gas stations, wherever, and people that I would have interactions with a couple times a week, I would ask them, hey, let me ask you a question, multiple choice. Just by our interactions, no right or wrong answers, just tell me, multiple choice. Number one, do you think I am a Bible-believing Christian? Number two, I'm more like a New Age spiritualist. Number three, I would say something else. And number four, like a atheist or agnostic. And almost exclusively, 90 to 95% of the time, they'd all go, oh, no doubt, a Christian, of course. And I always go, I would ask them why. And of course, because you're nice, you care. So
that's really interesting. I mean, I'm not overly surprised by it, but yeah, it seems like it's higher than I would expect.
Yeah.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello.
All right. My name's Gary. I'm a Quaker from the UK. You can tell from my accent, I'm from the northern UK.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm all right. Yeah. So, I want to ask a question to the preaching humanist. Right? Do you not think it's more beneficial for society that Christians, atheists, Muslims, Hindus, all together, those of us who are on the more reasonable end of things, and I'm talking about reasonable atheists as well, work together to try and solve maybe a lot of society's ills than try to one up each other? So, like, let's say, for example, solve like homelessness, world like hunger. Like, I mean, I don't know about America, but in the UK, food bank use has gone up. Like, I think it's like almost 2 billion, 2 billion, nearly 3 million now. I'm not sure what it's like in the US or Canada. I don't know if you're Canadian or not. But it's quite high. I mean, it's higher than it should be. We've got a population of 60 million, and 3 people in my country have to use the feed banks. Is that not something that we should all work together to try and solve, and try and take pot shots at each other?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we find that we can collaborate with many religious people in all this. We all want, like, feeding the homeless people. I do that, by the way, every Saturday morning before I go out with my son. And sometimes Christian groups will be out there. A lot of them, I'll go talk to them. They'll talk to me. They don't have an issue with me being a secular humanist. So we do work together. Now, the very, very strong evangelicals are not happy about it. But definitely, to answer your question, I think we should work together and team up with things that would be beneficial to humanity. And as far as poverty, world hunger, discrimination, LGBT rights, all the things together. Because we share all these values together. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Go ahead, Gary. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, a young fellow just joined, so I wanted to give him the platform.
That's okay. That's just Josh.
All right. Well, I wanted to show deference. But yeah, I mean, like, so what is your problem with people who, like me, believe in God, but are not necessarily trying to harm society through it? You know, I'm not bigoted in any way. I'm not homophobic. I'm not racist. I'm not transphobic. I'm not anything that I think you would see as negative. I mean, I just believe that God exists because, again, I think it's more likely than not, given what we know scientifically, to be the case. Now, you may not agree with that. That's fine. We can have a difference of opinion on that.
Sure.
But how am I harming society by believing that? Now, I believe in the teachings of Jesus and try to react them in a modern world because I think a lot less selfishness would be a good thing for society because everybody's concerned about what they have rather than what everybody has. Because the more everybody has, the more that we can profit from that. Because then somebody has to figure out whether they need, I don't know, like have to feed themselves that week or put on a light or choose to pay their rent that month. You know, they could pay everything equally and, you know, still have a decent lifestyle. And I think that again, I think that atheists as well have good concerns with that as well. Because I mean, a lot of atheists, like for example, like I would say, for example, like Stephen Law, for example, or people like that, do come. Ideas. I would disagree with them in some things, but I do think that they have some interesting ideas to bring to the table.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I think we should definitely try to be amiable, diplomatic, even with our differences, to promote the good for all. There's no doubt. See, I meet a lot of believers out there that are more progressive and liberal. They'll come by me and just come up to me and smile, and, well, before COVID, and shake my hand, and they'll look at the sign and say, I don't have an issue with you being an atheist. I know you can be good without a God. I promote science and reason like you do. I believe in treating everybody with kindness and love, even if we have some differences. So really, the only difference is people like yourself, it sounds like, and liberal progressive Christians and a person like me is just where does the goodness derive from? A progressive Christian would say it comes from God. We would just say it comes from nature. But other than that, we're very, very similar. So I think we should definitely attempt to work together in these things.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I think that's exactly what we were talking about by the normalization, because, you know, I think what we want to communicate with, especially this show and the whole kind of channel as a whole, is that we totally agree. You know, we're not saying that we have a problem with what you believe in. One, we just want to make sure that others see us. It's not the typical, well, they don't believe in our God, so they obviously don't share our morals. That is a very common misconception. And we want to let you know that, no, we have those same interests, because we do care about the homeless, and we do care about, you know, the food banks. And it is a problem here in the States, especially with COVID. And it's something that's harder for us now, because before I used to do a lot of volunteering, and now I've been quarantining, so we don't do it. So, you know, I apologize to you in a way, because I don't want to give you the impression that I have a problem with your belief.
No, I was just saying with the gentleman in the atheist talks T-shirt was saying that there's a problem with the Bible or whatever. But again, like, people can interpret the book the way they want, because again, like, there are different teachings within the different denominations and stuff like that. It depends on what you bring to it, because again, if you're a bad person, you're going to bring a bad teaching to whatever you believe or whether you don't believe. You know, there'll be bad atheists throughout society, there'll be bad Christians, bad Muslims, bad Hindus, bad whatever. And I think that, again, you can't change somebody's nature. If somebody comes from, you know, a bad enough starting point, because I generally believe what builds your nature is how you grow up. Because if you grow up, let's say, for example, in a bad environment, then that environment's going to follow you to adulthood. Let's say, for example, I mean, there are people who've managed to get away from that. Like, I'd say, for example, if you listen to what the people who've left Westboro Baptist, the Phelps family.
Yes.
A lot of the people who've left have actually become very different people from that,
more accepting and more friendly and not so hateful.
Yeah, so I think that, again, that shows me that it's an environment problem, not necessarily a religion problem or whatever. It's more the environment you grow up in. If you grow up in a very toxic environment, like, let's say, for example, you grow up in an environment that's very racist, for example, how do you get rid of that particular baggage? Is it a particular teaching? Is it a particular person? Is it a particular event? For some people, it's different things. Some people, it's a lifelong thing that they have.
Yes. Yeah, the way you're raised, I agree with you 100%. The way you're raised has a major effect on who you become, your environment, right? But usually people that get out and go to a college or university, they get out of their bubble, they start becoming more educated, more well-read. They become, especially for some of my background, my kids are in their mid-30s. They're both college educated. They both remain Christian. But they're liberal progressive. They love their father. They know what I do. My son even wants to help me if I start this community with some of the internet stuff, which I'm not good at. And he doesn't care. As long as you're good and you love people, we talk about it. And that's what I'm all about. So, and I've been rescued. I say that word rescued out there down at San Antonio at the Alamo many times. When I've had some angry, hateful Christians come by and yell at me and tell me I'm going to hell, I've literally had very loving, kind, liberal, progressive Christians come to my side and stand up against the hatred of the evangelical right. A lot of those people. And they don't care. They just want to be good and work together.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually completely agree with what you're stating, because I don't think the issue lies within individual belief systems, because as you stated, that a Christian can interpret, and even an atheist, and even a plethora of other sets of believers that are not Christian in a sense, could have a different understanding, a different way when they read the Bible of how they interpret it. So obviously we're not stating that the individual believer themselves are an issue. Nobody's stating that at all. It just like how David stated so eloquently, my mother is a Christian. And stuff like that. I would never turn my back on my mother because I'm an atheist. That wouldn't make any sense to me. And just like such as yourself, you seem like a very nice guy. I don't think that the problem resides within the individual person, within their individual interpretations of the book that they read. The issue is that when we start seeing individuals en masse starting to change policy that is regressive. Now, that's where I have an issue with.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we saw a lot of that in the United States recently. And that was a little bit concerning to some of us.
Yes. Yeah. You're talking about the last 4 years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I would argue that's because of a particular individual who, if he's a Christian, I'm a Olympic style triple jumper. Let's put it that way.
True. I don't want to go too far into it because it's not really what we want to talk about. But at the same point, he was embraced by a certain community. So he himself wasn't the best representation, but a lot of his voters were. And that is not picking on anybody who voted for a certain party or anything like that. I'm not saying that if you voted for Trump, you're a bad person. I'm not even agreeing with that. I'm just saying that there were a lot of people that were very pro kind of that whole movement simply because they thought a lot of policies that they had been looking forward to being passed we're going to get passed. And a lot of that, that can come down to abortion or just, church representation and government and stuff like that, which, those are different topics. And that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with atheism. Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you're absolutely pro-abortion. I know tons of atheists who are, very anti-abortion, but they're pro-choice because, they don't want to take freedoms away from people when they're not something that really is justified to take that freedom away.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
But the thing is for people like me is that like we see people say stuff about us that is harmful because again I don't want to get this because again you're going to say well this doesn't apply to me, but again a lot of what your problems with Christianity doesn't apply to me. So maybe if I speak in that sort of like generalistic tone, again my criticisms are in you four individuals. You all seem like very nice people. Mm-hmm. But when I see people using the stigma of mental health against people with religious beliefs, I start to have a problem. Okay. Because I somebody with mental health problems myself. I have anxiety, I have depression, and none of that is tied to my religion. It's tied to childhood trauma I have, and plus I've got dyspraxia, which is a learned ability. And that's why if you notice my speech, it's a bit slurred because of that, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that I'm very mindful of mental health problems. So as such, when I see people like, I don't know, I'll choose somebody like, let's say, for example, Daryl Ray, who uses mental health to try and explain why people can have religion. Again, people have religions for different reasons. Some people it's a comfort thing. Some people it's what they generally feel. Some people it's what they generally think. Some people, again, a certain person, Donald Trump, will have it as a cover for their bigotry. Like a lot of homophobes will hide behind, well, I'm a Christian and this is what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. Well, is that really what the Bible says? Well, not really if you actually read it properly. And the thing is that if people can cope themselves in that, it's a lot of a shield behind that. So again, the problem that people like me start to have is when we see stuff like that. But also we start to have a problem when, let's say, for example, we see ourselves get called stuff like deluded, we're living in a dream. Well, it's like, well, I'd like to think I'm none of those things. I'm a fairly well-educated guy, at a university, as an educated, I think that's fairly well-educated. I'm old enough to make my own decisions about things. You may not agree with my opinion. That's fine. You can try and change it, but again, calling me names is not going to make me change my mind. It's just going to make the shutters go down probably even worse. Because when it has ever name calling changed your mind about anything, political or otherwise, it hasn't.
Yeah,
I
agree with you 100%.
Being someone who has mental health problems myself, I can understand where you're coming from. And being someone that speaks out about mental health and religion as well, similar to Daryl Ray, as I've done on my channel, I'd like to say, first of all, that there's a difference between, obviously, saying that people who have religion are all they're doing it because they're deluded. They believe these things because they're deluded. That's wrong. That's outright.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is not correct. Now, where I come from when I speak out about mental health as regards to religion is I'm talking about, and I think Daryl Ray does this as well in a lot of his speeches. There's this thing called religious trauma syndrome. So for certain people who have religion, the religion itself has actually caused trauma in their lives through heavy indoctrination techniques throughout the life, and that's what we speak out against. We're not saying that every person who is religious has mental health issues, and that's the reason they believe. So there's a distinction there that I'd just like to make that point.
Yeah, and even like the softer insults that you're talking about, not necessarily just straight to mental health, but he believes in a God, so he's silly or not educated or deluded or whatever, everything like that. Yeah. None of that is acceptable. And I'm going to turn this over to David because he did talk about this a little bit earlier. But just one of the points, not every atheist is a secular humanist, and that's one of the things that we're also trying to promote our awareness. So it's not just getting us normalized within the Christian community, but also showing atheists maybe a better way, just trying to say, look, just because you don't believe and all that doesn't mean you can't be kind.
Yeah, exactly. Skid, if you don't mind, can I go back and talk a little bit about, and I'm going to have to probably go in about 5 or 10 minutes, but
you go right ahead and
made
talk
a
about whatever you
comment,
need.
And our Christian friend here, it's unbelievable because there are some people on our side of the fence that would say, and I don't like hearing this, that everybody that believes in some God, either Allah, Vishnu, Shiva, Jesus, is deluded, stupid, whatever. It's ridiculous. I have got some of my clients, some of my family members, or I have some clients, men my age. Let me take one, for instance. I trained him early this morning on Zoom. He voted for Donald Trump. He's a strong Christian, but right away, some of my atheist people would hear that and immediately want to demonize this guy, but they don't know him. I know him. I go into his home. I know his children, his wife, his grandkids. He is one of the most loving fathers, loving husbands, and people you'll ever meet in your life. They have no problem with me being an atheist. They both tell me, I don't care as long as you respect people and do good for others, right? They're those kind of people. He is a physicist. He's got a doctorate. He's brilliant, right? But he still believes in God. But he's not an evangelical. He's not approaching on everybody else. But my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, is a physicist. He's evangelical Baptist, right? We have our differences, but he is a very kind, loving husband to my sister and to his daughters and son-in-laws. Now, sure, they're in the mission field. They're Baptists. We have our differences. They're praying for me all the time because they still believe in hell. But the fact of the matter is there are people out there that are very intelligent, are very kind and loving. They just still believe in God, whether that's because they're raised that way, because of what some people call compartmentalizing, whatever. You have to come to a point in your life in humanism that really doesn't matter so much anymore, as long as someone else's belief doesn't cause harm. The old John Stuart Mill no harm principle, right? Thomas Jefferson says, I don't care if my neighbor believes in one God or 100 gods, as long as his belief doesn't pick my pocket nor break my leg. I don't care. Now, here in America, some of the far Christian right, and Islam too, the far right there, is harmful. Just like communism could have been, just like a secular religion has been in the past.
Yeah.
We have to be able to promote the good, and that's what we do. So, no, not all believers are, I've heard the term Christian tards. I've heard a lot of other, I had a person comment on a video I did talking to believers out there, and she said, Christians, are all potential terrorists to me, all of them.
Yeah.
And I said, you're not out of your bubble. Go talk to people. Sure, there's some bad ones, but there's bad atheists too. That's not how you make a better world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's just that, like, in the UK, for example, again, like, if you're religious, again, it's not really a big deal if you're religious or not. Again, it's not really used as a barometer to how good or bad a person you are. Sorry, the guy in the hat. Sorry, is it Bob? Sorry, I don't want to. Yeah, sorry about that. Maybe he could agree with me or disagree with me. But what in my state, it's not really a big deal here. Again, like what you believe. But the thing is, when I hear people say stuff about religious people, it's like that affects me whether I like it or not. Because it's like if people talk about disability, that affects me whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I completely agree with you. But I think at the same time, because there's mud throwing going around on both sides. So if we can hinder that mud throwing from both sides, then I 100% agree. But if we're only talking about a one-sided type of, okay, well, don't say anything bad about Christians, but we can go and say whatever we want about atheists, well, then I can't necessarily agree with that. But if you're going to say that, let's bridge that line and say, Christians who try to throw mud don't. Atheists who are trying to throw mud don't. Then I agree, and we can work together and collaborate on that.
Okay, look, let me be clear, right? I think that Christians who say, atheists just want to sin, they're going to hell, they're gay and they're in denial and all this sort of stuff. I do two things. A, they're pushing people away further from the faith. And two, they're hurting that person's feelings, because again, people don't just come to atheism out of ignorance. They come out of it after like severe contemplation and personal searching and education and stuff like that. Just because their opinion doesn't conform with mine doesn't mean that I think that atheists are bad. I was an atheist myself. It just means that their opinion differs from mine. Does that mean that I think they're bad? Right. No. I just have a different. We have a different opinion on one issue. Now, maybe I have that issue wrong. I'm willing to admit that, and I think that both sides need to admit that they both can be wrong on this issue.
Oh, absolutely.
If better evidence or better arguments or better whatever, if someone came to me and said, "Look, I can prove that Jesus didn't exist in the form that you think he did, or God isn't real based upon this scientific principle here that is irrefutable, is accepted by all scientists everywhere," then again, I would change my views. Now, I've not seen that yet, but I'm willing to, be shown that.
Yeah.
But the thing is
you're at least open to the possibility.
Yeah, exactly. And I think atheists need to be shown the other way, because again, if you tell me that my religion's a hateful religion, and I can show you that it not necessarily is, because again, it's not part of Quakerism. Again, there have been hateful Quakers. I'm not going to disagree with that for a moment. I'm just saying that Quakerism, in its historicity, that's even the term, is a very loving, gay friendly, black friendly, because we were behind the abolition movement and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We have things, but the thing is, I think that humanism can be as well. I just think that, as I said, we need to try and find where we can maybe have an interesting conversation without getting into personal attacks. Because again, if I'm wrong about something, I'd love you to show me that, hey, you're wrong about thing X, because again, God doesn't exist because of science principle X or argument Y. I'd love to be shown that, because again, you have to be open-minded, because again, as much as I'm a northerner, I'm a English northerner. Unfortunately, that comes with a lot of stubbornness. Unfortunately.
Yeah, hey, Gary, I'm gonna address that, but I know David said he needed to leave in 5 minutes, and it's been that time. So I do want to give him a chance to say any final words, and then give him a hearty goodbye before he heads out.
I think I probably talked myself out. I could probably go for hours. But I'd have to go. But all I want to do is encourage people out there that we're all human, whether you believe in a God or not. Try to find common ground. Diplomacy, again, does not mean you have to agree with everything. We cannot make the world a better place by hating each other and fighting all the time. So that's my message. To love is human. Acceptance, dignity, worth, freedom for all humanity. That's what secular humanism is about. Progressive, liberal Christians, Quakers, I'm sure you would agree, it's the same thing. We love all people. We're all the same. Even
Absolutely.
my 3 Jehovah's Witness clients on Zoom 3 hours ago agree. Can you believe it? Jehovah's Witnesses. I have Jehovah's Witness friends. Now, some things I get angry about what they do, but they're still just good people. They're just different in some ways, right? So they've never met anybody like me either. They're changing, and they're learning that, hey, humans are humans. So that's kind of my message right now.
Wonderful.
Guys, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. It was a wonderful conversation, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again sometime in the near future.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the conversation. I'll catch you later, David.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good
Yeah,
one.
Gary. So one point I do definitely want to hit on that you talked about is, like you said, your openness, that if there was some kind of absolute proof that you could see, you would be open-minded to that proof and reconsider your position based on that. And I think I could speak for everybody in this room is if there was that same evidence on the opposite end, we would absolutely consider it and be willing to accept that there is a God and everything like that. If it was proven without a shadow of a doubt that that was the truth, then absolutely we would accept it. You could always say, would we worship that God and everything like that? That's a different discussion for a different time. But again, there are atheists, again, who will say, no, there's nothing you could ever show me that's going to convince me. That is up to the individual and is not up to the entire movement. I personally, myself, I've never believed. So, I come in a little slightly different perspective than a lot of people because I've never been a member of a church and I've never really believed. I mean, as a kid, I remember, it's like, okay, I've heard about God. I assume it's real, but I also assumed Santa Claus was real. And so, and I had proof for Santa Claus because, I got presents on Christmas. So it's harder for me to maybe accept some information and say, well, I've got a rebuttal that says it's not this. But again, at the same time, I would say if there was proof, I would be open to it.
Yeah, I think
Now
it's
let everybody
it's the
else
same
speak.
I think it's the same for all of us. I mean, and I think we sometimes lose the conversation a bit when we're just like, oh well, you prove to me that God does exist. No, you prove to me that God doesn't exist. I think we lose a little bit something there. It's very important that we that we realize that we're all human beings, that we whether we believe or whether we don't believe, it doesn't really matter. We're still in general, the majority of us, we're still good, nice, loving people who just want to better humanity in some way. I think that's what we need to start on both sides.
Exactly.
Need to start moving towards.
Agreed.
And kind of like what we mentioned during the show, if you have these two distinct groups that don't necessarily agree and they come together for the common good, then they can start working out those other issues while they're focusing on the common goal. And then, we said most of the time, if you sat down and talked about it, 85% of the things that everybody believed in and wanted for the world, we would coincide on that. We would agree that this is the things that we should be focusing on. And then once we meet and have that common ground, then the stuff we don't agree on, that stuff's going to be easier to talk about because we've already built that relationship and built that society on common ground. And then it's not so much of a fight when we come to those issues.
Can I just do a couple of side issues before I do? I love the fact that you got. I love the fact that you got some Star Wars posters in the back. And I love the fact you wear a Zelda shirt.
Thank you.
Sorry, as you can tell, I've got comic book stuff there.
Yes, now I see it.
But as I was saying, but I think the thing is when Christians and atheists meet, sometimes it is under the hostile atmosphere I was talking about before, because again, people tend to go at each other because again, people have very strong opinions on both sides. Now, I think is like maybe, as I said, like maybe this is you now, but maybe like if I met you 5 years ago or 10 years ago, maybe you're more strident. Again, people tend to mature as they get older. But I think the problem is with people like me. I say to people like me, is that like we get pulled in by the idiots of our faith. People who say homophobic things or racist things or whatever, and people will say, well, that represents the whole faith, but it doesn't necessarily. Because again, like there are atheists who are homophobic, there are atheists who are racist. I mean,
absolutely.
And I think the thing is that, but I think the thing is sometimes it can be more of a movement attitude within Christianity. And I think I understand you on that particular point because there's more, what's the word? arguments against say, a particular group's rights. Let's say, for example, the Prop 8 movement, for example. I know that's over 10 years now, but that was fairly recent, in recent memory at least, where, like, that was about, gays being able to, and when I say gay, that's not homophobic, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm just using it as a prerogative. That gay people could marry. And the thing is, for me, why should be against that? Because if people love each other, why be against that? Again, this is my problem. Is that if people love each other, why would you want to stop that? And the thing is, but a lot of people are like, well, it's man and a woman and stuff like that. And again, maybe there's a discussion we have there, but I could understand it from, let's say, your point of view, where you see the push against that coming from the religious side, and you're like, well, maybe we need to get rid of that religion thing because then there would be no pushback. But I'd say there would be an equal amount of pushback from the secular side because we still be people who just get that icky feeling about two guys getting it on or two girls getting it on. I mean, me personally, whatever you do, perhaps in your bedroom, your business.
Exactly. And that's why, like, I do agree. And I think even though that Christianity already went through reforms, it needs, in my opinion, it needs maybe a second, or actually I would say a third reform in it in order to, like, you can still have your belief system. Nobody's saying that you shouldn't have your belief system or rip it away from you. That's not at all what we're stating, or at least what I'm stating and Trent and Katie are stating. What we're trying to state is that there are problems that are out there. And with these issues, we do need to work together as two separate communities in order to tackle these issues.
Absolutely.
However, I do feel that within both sides, not just one, but within both sides, there does seem to be a toning down of the rhetoric in a sense. Because if one side is trying to work with another, but there's individuals on that side having rhetoric, which is going to stimulate rhetoric from this side, there's no way that you can form some sort of, maybe not cohesive, but maybe a movement that is able to tackle the issues and the problems that we are actually having, as you stated beforehand, the poverty issue, and also global warming and all the rest of these things that are going on while we're just sort of swinging at each other, and we're not even realizing what's literally happening to the earth and what's literally happening to our own backyard, in a sense. So we do need, and I agree with you, we do need to stop the rhetoric and focus more on how to come together. However, I would have to say that sadly, definitely within the YouTube community, at least for now, it is more based on debates than anything else. It is based on the swinging at each other. And that's why I think the Promethean community is that sort of separation from that, in a sense. So what we do is that we will focus predominantly on individuals and what they do for their living, in a sense. Rather than why are they swinging at religious individuals or whatever the situation may be.
And David was a good example of this, and I would consider myself the same way. And this does not apply for everybody, within even our movement, is that I identify myself as a secular humanist first. The atheist thing is not the big flagpole that I put in the ground. It just happens to be my state of belief. I don't try to debate with a lot of people because that's not my passion. My passion is more pushing the secular humanism movement. I'm big about like separation of church and state, not because I don't want the church involved in government, but I think that they also already have a little too much power because they're so big and they have so much influence and stuff like that you need those protections. So it's not about promoting atheism. It's just promoting my freedom to live my life without religion because that's what I believe in, and that's the life that I would say makes me happy.
Yeah, that's perfectly. Sorry, mate. You go.
I was just going to say we've got just under 10 minutes before we're going to be wrapping up the show. Just to let everyone
Okay.
know.
Sounds good. Yeah, Gary, I'll let you get in any final thoughts. You're our guest here, and we definitely want to hear from you.
That's all right. As I said, we could try and maybe do this again sometime, because I mean, you guys seem like good people, and I would like to maybe have conversations with you that maybe go
Absolutely.
wider topic, because again, I found this interesting. But I would say I think the biggest problem is who we're speaking for, the non-believer movement. Because again, if I see someone like, I hate to say this, but if I see someone like Richard Dawkins, it's going to put me in a bad mood when it comes to your society. I'm just going to be perfectly generally honest, gents. Because the guy has said that I, as a Christian, should be mocked in public. He said that people with Down syndrome should be euthanized, as in they should be euthanized in the womb. Can you understand why we may have a teensy weensy bit of a problem with that?
I think we can all say that, I think we can all agree that, it makes us a little bit angry as well when we hear him saying things like that. And I mean, we do respect the guy. He is a big name within the movement, but there's certain things that he says which just goes way past the line.
We respect the ideas, and not those ideas. We respect the ideas that kind of promote learning and knowledge and stuff like that. So the same person can be really inspirational when it comes to, promoting education, but then say something so stupid that it makes you facepalm. So, we definitely want to get to the point. It's like, yes, we agree with when he says that, but we don't agree with that. So we're not making fun of ideas. Well, I got that backwards. Let me try again. Take two. We're not just agreeing with the person because the person said it. We're agreeing with ideas, but at the same time, if they say something we don't agree with, we absolutely need to say, you know what? Yes, when he said this, that it's a mental deficiency for that religious people have. It's like, no, we do not agree with that. And I agree. We should be more responsible for saying, I do not agree when somebody says that, it's a mental deficiency, however they say it. That goes beyond what is called for.
But I would agree with him when it comes to, let's say, for example, regards to science education, because I do think especially in the UK, it is not as funded as it should be, in my personal point of view. Because again, there's a lot of, as I said, people who don't get. I mean, as I said, evolution wasn't something that I'm getting old now, so maybe it has improved since when I was at school. But with that school, I didn't really learn about evolution. Do you know where I learned evolution from? Or maybe like both skeptics on this show as well. It's one called, I think it was The Naked Ape. It was on BBC. It's about 6 parts ish, and it's about how apes perform in the wild, but it's also about human behavior. Like, there's one episode which was about how this woman might be having an affair because she was masturbating. We'll put it that way. And it was stuff like, and it was actually a really informative show. And actually, I learned more about that evolution in that show than I did in my entire 4 or 5 years of bloody biology classes. I did. And the thing is that, but that's the case. You kind of need a refresh of, and I think what he does is important in that sense of trying to improve the level that we are teaching kids. I totally agree with that. What I don't agree with is when he says like people like me have like some sort of, as you were saying before, mental deficiency, or we just want to believe because we like being authorized. It's like, dude, that's a bit of judgmental attitude I don't really need. Do you know what I mean? It kind of puts me on edge because again, I'm sure like again you don't like being told you're a sinner. I don't really like being told what my mental state is. It's kind of mutual beneficial things. You know, you don't like certain things, I don't like certain things. You know, I think we can come to agreement on that.
Yeah, exactly. And we just need to move past the name calling. So, well, correct me if I'm wrong. Gary, is that your name?
Yeah.
Oh, Gary, it's been wonderful talking with you. I know Borg's about ready to wrap up the show, but I wanted to thank you for coming on. I know you were a little nervous about coming on and you worried about not really fitting in with the group, but it was a pleasure talking with you tonight.
Well, I like to think that I did all right. Anyway, chaps, thank you for having me. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll get off.
And you're welcome to come back in for any, if you want to
Please
come back for
do.
another after
I would love
party,
to chat with you again.
we'd love to have you here.
See you later, chaps.
All right, see ya. So yeah, thank you for everyone who's been watching. Join us again next week. We'll be back at the new time of Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yep. So we'll see you next week. And I hope you've enjoyed the conversation tonight. We thoroughly have enjoyed the conversation tonight.
Absolutely.
There's links for David's channel, The Preaching Humanist, in the description. So please jump over there if you haven't already and show David some love. He was an amazing guest.
He was really good.
Absolutely.
And remember, stay safe and stay home and wear a mask. Thank you and good night.
Bam.